Trigger warning. This video contains references to themes of suicide and depression, which some individuals may find distressing. Fuimaono-Tuimafuiva Falesataua Joshua Iosefo is a child of the Oceanian Diaspora, born and raised in South Auckland. They have a passion for storytelling, education, and raising mental health awareness within Pasifika families. They are the founder of Odd Family, a collective who create and perform stories to encourage Pasifika families to talk openly about mental health. When they're not gaming or listening to K-pop, you can find them working on their PhD, doing alchemy, or making magic. I guess as we just kick off, whose shoulders do you stand on today? Who do we need to acknowledge in your story?
Interesting. It's interesting to talk about standing on shoulders, because whenever I kind of heard that narrative, I kind of was like, no, I don't want to stand on my grandpa's shoulders, like my poor grandpa, like my poor aunt is like, oh, like, you know. And so I think I definitely view my ancestors and those who I look up to as like my guiding stars, I would say. So it's giving kind of typical Lion King moment when Simba, you know, is out in the wild, and then he sees, you know, Simba, and he sees his father, and then in the cloud. And so I think I would say that's how I position, you know, those who have gone before me. And so, yeah, I acknowledge my grandpa, sort of more Mai, the late sort of more Mai, as well as my auntie, Little Maiova, Fatty, we call her Auntie Fatty, and just everyone who was really just gone before me, and especially my parents who are still here, and yeah, they've just, yeah, I love my parents so much. Really held it down for me and my family. So yeah, I'd like to acknowledge them. Yeah,
it's awesome. Have you worked out how you describe what you do when people ask? Because I'm not going to.
Yeah, I just tell people I'm a magician. Like, I just say I'm just a wizard. Like, I'm just like a mystic. Like, I think that's just because of the intersections that I cross. That's kind of meant that I've had to really shapeshift and traverse different spaces and kind of reinvent myself almost, or just shift forms depending on, and code switch just on those different spaces. And so yeah, so it kind of lends myself, my experience has been like within education, within like youth space, within queer space, within like the art space, and then within academic space, and like theater and film and television. Like, it's just this kind of, and like last week I was doing clay, like, you know, it's just kind of a range of things. So I just like to say, yeah, I'm a magician.
I like to think that's maybe how our ancestors viewed themselves too. That it was about, like, certainly if you're going to take a voyage, you can't be one thing.
Yeah.
And in the modern world, I think it feels a bit strange to say stuff like that, but I don't think so. I think that's totally where our heads need to be.
You know, if we're looking at Pasifika peoples, and if we're looking at, you know, our people today, the world is changing at such a rapid pace, and so we are having to wear more than one hat, you know, and so there's so many instances where my friends or family or even just people that I would meet were talking, and then they're saying, oh, they're doing this, but then they're also doing this, and then they're also a mother, and then they're also like all of the different identities that we coexist in real time together, and so it's really interesting.
Joshua, how do I phrase this? Like, I don't know if there was a big plan for the migration, you know, from our peoples coming to Aotearoa. Maybe it was sold around this dream of you'd have more certainty. But I don't think they talked about the other side, which was at what cost. You know, and so you've got these generations like us who are like, where do we fit? And that stuff. And I guess one of the things I'm interested in your view is like, how have you kept the traditional stuff, but been brave enough to say, we also have to move forward?
Yeah, wow. I would say that my journey has been one from escapism to returnism. And so growing up within the diaspora, growing up queer, growing up like third generation, growing up where my parents didn't speak Samoan, my grandparents did, and literally in our family worships, aunties and uncles are translating for us kids. Like you can see the intergenerational differences within our languaging. I really found myself, and then as well as growing up heavily in a very religious family, there were so many parts that I couldn't connect to just because of how I viewed myself, and my queer identity, as well as being this Japanese-speaking Samoan, really was like, how do I fit within my culture? You know, like how does that fit in? And so for a long time, especially within my youth, I was always trying to look for a place to belong. So I was like, where do I belong? So hence the escapism. So, you know, that saw me live in Japan when I was 15. I was flipping burgers at McDonald's. I think I got my first job. I just turned 15, worked at McDonald's for like a while, saved up enough money. And then I was on a flight to Japan and studied Japanese at a Japanese Buddhist school in Japan for a year. And even in that culture, this, I guess, fantasy or this place of belonging that I yearn for, I didn't find it there either. And so I came back really being like, where do I fit? You know, like, and the queer, me being queer was a big part of that, because that at the time didn't translate with my family dynamic and my family's faith. And so hence why I was like, I gotta go. I gotta go find where I belong. And then how the journey's kind of ended up now is after, you know, me and my family went through this massive reconciliation kind of journey. I'm finding that as I investigate my culture and as I go back into the history of Samoa and I see how beautiful and how intrinsic our connection with nature is, and how we acknowledge Tangaloa as both male and female, and our other deities such as Satia, who's also a shapeshifter in terms of genders. You know, they just shapeshift depending on who they want to lay with. Come on, that's so cool. But when I look into that part of history, the pre-colonial part of our islands and of our myths and our legends and the way in which we lived our lives, I fit there. And that's where a lot of our Pasifika queer peoples, that's where we belong. That is where we can see where we belong, because that was where we thrived. Wow. And with colonization, it came a total shift in languaging, which then demonized queer peoples. But also in that came a total shift in culture and spiritual practice. And so that's kind of why, and when I understood that, that's kind of like, well, that's why for the longest time I felt disconnected within my queerness, within me being Pasifika in the diaspora, is because I didn't know that ancestral link. And now that I know, it's definitely I've returned. Like I really feel that escapism to returnism, where I'm really, I think that there is so much goodness and so many clues as to how to move forward in our Indigenous reference.
Absolutely.
Which is so, it's actually quite, it's really tear-jerking. Like if you just read like a lot of our beliefs, it's really anchored in love, in alofa, and it's anchored in understanding, and it's anchored in intergenerational conversations.
You had to go offshore. You had to go on this voyage.
Yeah.
And you ended up coming back. And then going back.
Yeah. And I mean, and just to kind of, you know, just to lean on personal experience and you know, just being real and vulnerable with these experiences, like my love for, or me seeing, I guess, Japan, for example, as a way for me to belong was embedded in the stories that I watched as a kid. So I'm such an anime. I love, you know, all of that. And as a kid, I saw queerness in anime. And so I was like, oh my gosh, they accept us, Went over there and it was like a total different story. Like I was bullied. Like I was just like the lowest of the low there. Like the host family that I stayed with at the time, they were very, very homophobic. And so I wasn't allowed to use their washing machine. I had to wash my clothes in a bathtub. Like they didn't want to catch my gay germs, they called it. Like it just was a really life-changing and horrible experience. And in that, I missed my family, which is interesting because it was my family who I wanted to run away from.
Wow.
To find this, where do I belong? And then when I got there and was fronted by these realities of what it means to be queer and the realities of just because the grass is greener doesn't mean anything. Like it really is about how you grow your garden, and it really is about where you water, and it really is about how much sun, and it's really is about the growth and that narrative. That was the biggest wake up call for me. Yeah. I was like, wow, yeah.
and to be so kind of let down from this dream, you saved up the money to go, and this was going to help you flourish, and I guess it did, but in a weird way where it pushed you to the edge again, and then you had to find the strength, to come back and actually literally come back.
Yeah.
And were there, how did you know to search your past? Because there's lots of, I think, our people out there who don't know, who are stuck in this narrative and other narratives and not willing, or the thing I think is, man, we need to amplify this to let people know that you kind of crack the matrix, and others can too.
Yeah. And I think, and that all, I guess my, that journey of going back to kind of our Indigenous reference, that really goes, that is a continued conversation that has started before me. Like that kind of started with my Auntie Fatty, late Auntie Fatty. She builds waka. Well, she built waka, and she sailed them across Oceania. Wow. And at the time, and so I grew up with waka. Auntie would take me to waka all the time. All of us kids, we also grew up meditating. We grew up going to temples. So she was that kind of auntie that was like, come on, we're going to do all of this kind of stuff. But what I didn't know is actually, for me, waka was just something we did, but I didn't know that waka was that Indigenous tool that would help us to navigate ourselves back to ourselves. And so in realizing how potent waka can be and as a framework, in regards to identity, in regards to the collective identity, in regards to healing, in regards to just knowing where the knowledge sits and how that knowledge can affirm us, that I then grew curious. And then my mom, who also is so she's doing her PhD at the moment. She's also an academic and a researcher. She looks at this too, and she was trying to figure out, wow, where, she was trying to figure out how do we navigate this colonial system, and all of the answers are within our Indigenous reference, and it's about bringing that back into the fold, and seeing that the answers were already written by our ancestors, and we just got to do a little bit of excavation, a little bit of memory unlocking, and a little bit of kind of like, yeah, that's right. That's that's the memory, or that's the that's the knowledge. And so through my auntie, through my mom, through my family, that's kind of when I was like, actually, I think I also want to investigate this too. And so my master's was about the relationship that I share with my auntie, with my late Auntie Fatty. She is also queer, and her and I at the time were the only out queer people in our family. And so we shared this really sacred connection. And I wrote my master's about this. I was like, okay, so there's this connection. And I wanted to investigate that. And so, which led me to look at Indigenous reference. And that's why I found where we belonged. And that's why I found, that's why, Auntie, that's why you love waka. Oh, that's why, all of that. And so the relationship that I share with Auntie, and the relationship that queer Pasifika people share with each other is what I coined as Vawhetu, which is the space between stars. And that's the metaphor to share that that understanding of Va as space-time, so that we can use the stars as a tool to reconnect ourselves with our queer ancestors and bring their kaupapa and bring their belief and their place of belonging back into the fold. Wow. That reaffirms our place in this modern world. Yeah.
And is the academic writing a way to capture that, to guide people to that deeper conversation?
I think interesting, yay. Like, so my whole gripe with academia is that sometimes I feel academia is just academics talking to more academics. But if that doesn't impact communities, and if that isn't doing anything on the floor, it's meaningless, in my opinion. And so yeah, so it's interesting about that whole book, because I'm like, for me in my academic work, like I focus on narrative and stories, because that's something we all share. Yeah. And so I'm hoping, yes, that some of my research or what I do, the story of what I do is then shared with other people.
That's beautiful.
Because there's no point if we're all just talking about these concepts with each other and it's not actually doing anything, you know.
Yeah, because when I was trying to kind of like get a feeling of, you know, I saw the word storytelling, and I was like, you know, I think most people just think it's nice to tell stories, but I get the sense now, no, this is a portal in. This is a portal into that, into your past. I mean, is that right? You know, can it be used as a way to connect deeper? And I guess I'm starting to speak in that spiritual. I'll just park the religious conversation because I think it's got some, you know, some modernizing to do, but we're talking very spiritual, Totally. This connection,
Totally. And that is also Indigenous reference as well. You know, in terms of, you know, there was these researchers and they interviewed traditional ancient Samoan healers. And this was back in the 70s, either 70s or 90s. I can't quite recall it from my foggy memory. But they interviewed these healers, and these healers were sharing about the paradigm and the equilibrium that existed within Samoan Indigenous reference. And we believe that someone, you know, our overall health and well-being was determined by three worlds. And that was the natural world, the spiritual world, and it was the social world. So it was all to do with our intrinsic spiritual connections, our connection with nature, our connection with each other. Like that was what made up the health and well-being. And I feel like my understanding and my opinion about, you know, with colonization and how that really impacted and impacted our culture severely, it completely disrupted that equilibrium and it completely disrupted that world. And some may say that it also disrupted that spiritual world where it then became blanketed under religion as opposed to spirituality, which is quite different.
I think, well, here's a couple observations. One, Levar gave us a good marketing budget, so this is going to get seen. Yes. Two, we have an opportunity here because I think our people are really looking for this.
Yeah.
You know, like that we believed that we're just part of this other journey that's going on, and you're talking to a much deeper level.
Yeah.
And it's all of the things we thought, like, you know, it's more than a waka. It's more than a story. These are the things that connect us.
And everything, it's so exciting to me because the more you go back and the more you understand just how our world worked and our worldview, you understand how genius we are. Like complete geniuses. Like I'm just like, boom. And I kind of grew up with that because Auntie Fatty was such a genius. You know, the way that she taught us on the waka, like she never used a compass. She just told us, so you put your arm out and you place it next to your ear, and the distance between your thumb and your pinky, that is approximately 11.25 degrees. You times that by the 9 whares, and then that makes it one quadrant. Like wait, or 7 or 9. I can hear it being like, no, it's 7 or 9. Well, anyway, but like that, but in terms of the science of it all, like it's a completely different language.
Yeah.
because it's a completely different intrinsic understanding and relationship with nature. Like it's one that works with nature. Like even in our architecture, we don't use nails, we use sinet lashing. Like, and even in that, before we make our waka, we go and we pray to the tree, and we pray to the okay, what tree shall we use to make this vessel? Then we select that tree, and then there's this massive ceremony around that tree, and then we cut the tree down, and everyone is involved in that creation. Similar with our fale, and the way that our fale are actually aligned with the cosmos, and how the way that we sit in the fale, it's been that way since the beginning of time. And the way that the fale is designed, like the overall shape of it, is to mimic the heavens so that we always know where we are going and where we belong. Like all of these stories, I'm like, that affirms me. And I can see how that can affirm the collective, and that can affirm all of us. And I think that we've realized that the migrant dream ain't it. We've realized it's become a nightmare. And now we're left, and now it comes the question, now what? And my belief is that our ancestors have given us the answers to that question. We just need to uncover, and we just kind of need to bring that back into the fold, and have some really good conversations about the possibilities of the future for Pasifika peoples.
And I guess through your story too, that you were searching. And you found that, and that suggests that others can too.
Yeah, totally.
Use that feeling you have of the anxiety. Let it push you. Maybe that's our ancestors saying, come on, rediscover. And so, I mean, when we're talking today, I get the sense too that this is not part of the Ministry of Health's rubric or pillars, and even if they would say it is, and I'm not here to make enemies, but I'm here to say, hold on a minute, if you're saying that you care about people, then take it serious. That listen, and that it doesn't just mean, a Western mindset is serious. No. We're saying that there's more ancient things going on than...
Totally. And I think also, like, if we're thinking about the rubric, say, for example, I think, in reflection of COVID-19, where literally the whole world was forced to stop, I'm still trying to reconcile how fast we were or how we positioned ourselves to quickly get back into the rhythm of things. And that's a testament as well to the floods that happened earlier this year, where the focus really was about how do we get back to the rhythm. But what I'm interested in, and what I believe is a conversation to be had, is let's maybe stop. Let's reflect. Let's talanoa. And maybe there's some things that we need to reconsider. And maybe the rubric doesn't work anymore. And maybe, I think that, yes, the ideas or possibilities can be scary, especially when we're so conditioned to a certain way of being and creating and existing within these societies. But I also think that if we have these conversations, there's actually only good can come from them. And I don't think we've given ourselves permission to be like, oh, maybe, for example, money's not a good idea. Maybe, for example, this is actually not a good idea. And maybe, what's our priorities? What's the focus here?
That's right.
And so in that conversation, that's when we can bring in all the Indigenous reference, and that's why I'm so my heart is so warm, and I'm also so excited to see what a lot of the mahi that's going on. And when I share that, it's like, I'm not the only one who's doing this. So many of us are doing this too. And I'm looking at how, people are now living their lives according to maramataka as well, and how that whole kaupapa has kind of come through, and we're getting people really seeing how Indigenous knowledge can be so valuable within this modern day. I think that the answers are all there and it's actually not hard. Yeah.
Well, we're seeing that billions of dollars pumped into a mental health system is having not really the desired effect, which is to help people thrive. And that is evidence in some ways that we should be looking, holistic's probably the wrong word, but the word I'm trying to mean, where it's not just an easy conversation. It's not just throw more resource at it. It's it's having more meaning. It's trying to see where you fit in the world.
Totally. And I think as even if we look at Pasifika peoples and queer communities and Pasifika queer communities, which is also not necessarily the same as queer or Pasifika. If we look at all of the stats, for example, all of the things that we're going through, all of the hills that we're climbing, what I find is that we're also the ones who are mobilizing, and we're the ones who are creating space, and we're the ones who are implementing these things that work. Because what is there doesn't serve us, or all of these attempts and don't actually do anything. And I watched this talk about Taika Waititi, and he's talking about the whole thing. You stuffed this up. You fix it. And I'm saying the same. Like, I've been on so many diversity panels. I've been on so many Pasifika panels. I've been on so many, how do we fix this? Can you please tell us, how do we do this? And I'm like, you see, for you, you're looking at numbers. For me, that's my uncle. That's my brother. That's my family. That's my empty lunchbox when I was a kid. So, it's different from a lived experience than something that's from a higher up. There's just this major disconnect. Yeah. And so, there needs to be a talk about that, because also what's happening is we're burning out.
Absolutely.
Our people are burning out, and I can testify to that. I literally spent my entire youth serving community, serving young people, serving queer and Pasifika peoples, and it really burnt me out. And and it's like, we shouldn't be the ones who are trying to. We are the ones who are always helping ourselves, because that's just how we're made. That's within our DNA. We're all about the collective. But it would just be. But I think there needs to be a conversation between those who aren't in that space, and then us who are on the floor.
Absolutely. At the start, we talked a little bit about time travel. Going back in time, and I wonder the version of you that I get to meet today.
Yes.
There's a lot of water under that bridge. You went around the world and came back. But if we look at the version of you which was seeking, which was looking for answers, what was that world like for you?
Well, I've only just arrived, literally this year. A little bit about my story. So, after I left to seek and I came back and I was like, oh no, that's not for me. I then went into this, I just went gung-ho with my studies. I just focused on my studies. And then, but something was still missing, and at 17, when all of a sudden, you're talking to this boy, then everything just changes, And so for me, typical, just teenage romance, I was 17 talking to this dude. He was way older than me. And, and then got really wrapped up in this relationship. And then, told my family, no, I love, they found out. And then, shit hit the fan. Shit really hit the fan. I got kicked out of home. And then I had $8 to my name. Wow. I didn't know what to do. And so my grandparents who raised me, they took me in. And so I finished my degree while sleeping on my grandparents' couch. To which I was graduate of the year. And I share that not because I think I'm the man or whatever, but I share that just in terms of I'm one of the collective. And that just goes to show the resilience, as well as all of the water that's under all of our bridges and the things we're having to do to navigate this, right? And so I did that. And then And then after that whole situation, I went on a journey of reconciliation with my parents, where we had this really big talanoa, and we really talked about what happened, and we talked about the family literally exercising me and praying me out of the family. Like, I went through this, it was this big tumultuous moment where my queerness divided the family. And then so we went on this journey, and in the end, to kind of make an altar, or to kind of put a stake in the ground of our journey, I ended up writing a play, which was Odd Daphne. And Odd Daphne was a play about this family really navigating queerness, mental health and well-being, and all of that. And that play was really significant because at the end, we gave audience members the opportunity to sign up for mental health first aid workshops, and we had over 46 families sign up to mental health workshops from that show. And so for me, it was about, okay, we've gone through this, we've healed through this. Now, how can we share our story to also allow other families to possibly go on a similar journey? And so things are looking great. I'm like, oh my gosh, riding this high. And then like I end up meeting someone in that. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm talking to this guy, who's really, really cute, whatever. We end up getting married. And then last year he leaves me. Yeah. So last year he ends up leaving me. And then mum is also diagnosed with cancer at the same time. And everything, my whole world just collapsed. And I felt that I was back at square one,
Right.
where I was like, on the waka again, like, where am I going? And what am I doing? And where do I go from here? And so, I really went through this journey where my family and I feel like we had learned from previous versions or previous timelines of this journey. And they just really held me and really helped me grieve and really stood by me and stood beside me. And when I say family, I'm talking about my family as well as my chosen family,
Yes. Yes.
And they just really held it down for me. And this year, our family went back to Samoa. So before that, my grandfather also sadly passed away, and this is the man who took me in when my family wouldn't, and so he sadly passed away this year, and part of that journey is our family went back to Samoa to receive our titles, which was a big, massive return, and for me, that was the biggest return that I needed, because in a lot of ways, that love story or that queer love story or that whole in the ways in which I built my life, they all came crumbling down, and I needed to go back to where everything began for me. And so that was going back to where the placenta of my grandfather's buried, that's going back to our islands, that's going back and feeling the sun and literally just allowing our culture to heal me. One of my friends, she shared actually this week, we kind of had some tragic news hit my friendship group, my family, and it's kind of gone to the point where all of us are in different stages of mourning, being cast within this diaspora. And she said to me, she goes, in moments like these, we lean on our language. And I was like, oh my gosh, and for someone who's still learning their language, for me, that stood out as something that was so potent and powerful for me. Because it is that. It's like in moments of these, we go back to who we are and what we know. And also something she did say to me too, because I was raised Seventh-day Adventist, which means that we weren't allowed to siva. So it was so interesting going to these weddings, and then, the groom or bride's family would go siva, and they'd look at us and we're all conservative Seventh-day Adventists, not even allowed to go up and awhi or nothing. And so in preparation for my wedding, I was like, oh, I want a siva. And I was feeling so mad and embarrassed. I was like, oh my gosh, how do I do this? You know, all of that. And she said to me, you may not know how to seva, but seva knows you. And seva knows you very well. And that for me was another like moment where yeah, like it just washes away all of those insecurities and all of those who am I, those questions, because we've already been reclaimed, you know, in terms of our ngafa, our ancestors, the calls and cries that they were saying from thousands, a millennia ago, those are still vibrating within this cosmos, and those are things that we can really rely on, and it's in our tatau, it's in our designs, it's in our talanoa, like this right here. This is talanoa. This is us doing what our people do.
Yeah.
And this is healing.
Yeah.
And it's more of this that I truly believe is the answer to a lot of what we're dealing with. And love is so potent and so powerful. And should not be underestimated as a beautiful source of overflow and a place where you can meet and talk, you know. And so
I think about what your parents or your family were like, that decision to turn their back on you.
Yeah,
that must, I mean, obviously very traumatic for you, but it must have left trauma for them.
It was very traumatic. It was also quite interesting in how events unfolded after that. So I didn't come out to my dad's parents. He came out to them on behalf of me. And so we went through this reconciliation process, and I still was a little bit more about, you know, really authentically being myself. And my dad and mom, they found themselves with my grandparents, and my nana was like, hey, Auntie saw a photo of your sua on Facebook and he's with this boy, like literally. And she was like, what is going on? Like, and my dad had to come out on behalf of me and had to say, Joshua is queer, or Joshua, you know, and he was saying that it was this, it just became the storm. Like my nana was upset, my dad was upset, and then he came home and he told me, and we cried, and he goes to me, how did you do it? He was like, that was so hard. And I'm not, he was like, I was doing it on behalf of you. How? And we just had this big cry, and we're just like, and I just said to him, man, Dad, that is such an act of love. And it was really funny because then after that, my grandparents just needed to know. And once they had come to peace with that, then it became different. Then Nana's being like, oh, Yosu, what do you think about, you know, it just completely shifted her. But I think it's quite beautiful and quite interesting in terms of that intercession and the intergenerational conversation, and how sometimes, and I think this is, I think this is where the intergenerational conversation is very important. And this is why all generations matter, and why all of us matter, no matter where we whakapapa from, is that we're all needed to move forward. All of us. Yeah. You know, and each of our generations is needed to move forward, because it's that intergenerational conversation that will mobilize everyone and hold everyone. Because actually, maybe let's not mobilize. Let's just stay and sit for a bit.
Yeah.
And then maybe let's talk about mobilization. But I think priority is just for us to sit together and to compare notes together and just to kind of be. Because, and I think that was quite powerful to have Dad do that for his family, and then just that intergenerationality. And I think that, there could be some key things there. Yeah.
I mean, it's so you just tell me if this kind of sounds right as a story. It's like there's so many layers. You know? It's like you've got parents who have come to this country and tried to adopt these mindsets versus this other area where you're talking about your grandfather. You know, almost like we've left the battery and we're running kind of on fumes in this part of the world, and then that mindset trying to put on you, and that's not allowing you to be your authentic self, and the dramas of that, the negative consequences. And I think we can say those are what many of our people feel when we talk about things like contributing factors in the suicide realm, that these are all those little things. And when your father says to you, how did you do it? How did you do it? Because this might come out wrong, Joshua, but many of our people don't.
No, you're absolutely right.
And I want to say, like, I don't wish to take more from you, because I think that's not correct. You're not here for us to extract everything and build a framework and scale it. But it's like some people need that bit of hope.
Yeah.
And you found that, and what was that, and what can you give someone to pin their hope on?
Yeah, I think honestly it's so I'm so upset that we are still talking about the coming out narrative. Because essentially what that means is that there are so many Pasifika people and so many people in general who are existing and navigating life from a point of survival where they're not able to be their authentic selves. And that really upsets me because that conversation is actually a conversation we should have never had. Because if you look at our architecture, if you look at our fale, there are no closets, there are no doors, everything is open, and there's no reason to come out because we always have belonged and we always should belong because we've always existed within Samoan Indigenous reference. We're in the stories. Our people just forgot us. But it wasn't a memory that they forgot, it was a memory that was taken from them. And so my heart mourns for my people because I know that there are so many of us who are navigating life in the closet, who are D-low, and a lot of us will be D-low until we leave this realm, until we leave this world. And that for me is not living. That for me is not thriving. That for me is not the dream that our ancestors had of us. And so the key to shifting that narrative, to moving far from that coming out narrative, is to affirm that our babies and our kids and our rangatahi and our children, our young people, and even our elders and everyone in every generation, that they actually belong, regardless of faith, regardless of sexuality, regardless of gender, that they have a place here. And for those who are navigating that, you have the tools, you have that Indigenous knowledge, you have that intrinsic connection, you know who you are. And because you know who you are, people will love and affirm you for who you are. And those people who will love and affirm you, those are the right people that you are to walk life beside. Yeah. And it is hard. It is very hard, but I think the more that our families, especially our families, that's the key to this whole thing, is families. If our families are willing to open their hearts and open their minds to shifting this narrative, to really it's not even a thing for someone to have to come out. It's not even a thing. It doesn't even clash with the religion, because you know what matters is you being here. That's what matters at the end of the day. If we shift those narratives within our families, then I feel encouraged that we will be able to really thrive, and we will be able to see our young people operating out of the deficit and operating in total freedom and operating in total liberation. Like it's not pride that queer Pasifika peoples that's not our narrative, it's purpose. It's not pride for us, it's purpose. And I think that is what needs to be instilled within our families, is knowing that we belong. And we all belong. All of us belong. This world is so intrinsically and intricately designed that every single person belongs here. And the more that we affirm that you belong here, then we can start talking about cool stuff. Then we can start talking about the mobilization.
Yeah.
But until we sit down and we just come together and sit together and talanoa together, we won't be able to mobilize as efficiently as we could have if we had this conversation first.
And as part of the message I'm feeling, not a message, but part of what we're talking about, if you don't encourage people to be themselves, whoever they feel like they are, you are only passing on more trauma. Because it is, like I've explored on this podcast, if you're not able to say it out loud, to talanoa, to express, your only option is to bottle it up. Yeah. And that is a major bad one.
It's, totally. Because people just, I went to, as every Pasifika male, I went to an evening with Oprah when she came over. She came over and I went to her. I was like, oh my gosh. It was funny. Me and my boyfriend said, oh my gosh, we're going to go see Oprah. We're going to see Oprah Winfrey. Yes. Went to an evening with Oprah. And she said that, every single person on this earth is just wanting to be validated. Acknowledging and affirming someone's place in the world, you don't lose anything. Like if we're going to put it on a scale of winning and losing, which the society loves, there's really nothing to lose here. Everything to gain and everything to explore and everything to experience together.
Do you think your family know that now? Yeah, because I guess for me it's a ray of sunshine that it can work out. It's fear-based, the stuff you were telling me. I don't know what, for some reason, I don't know exactly who in the family, but they thought it was better for you not to be there. And that can never be acceptable. And so do you ever have those talanoa these days, like, we got that really wrong there?
Yeah. We did. We ended up, even in the making of our Daphne, the show, we were having these talanoa as we were going as well. Like, there's a scene there where we kind of recreate an entire exorcism, which was something that I had experienced. And that, and in those, and in recreating or in revisiting those different points in the timeline, we were able to open up and have these conversations, and family members were able to reflect and be like, I'm sorry, people apologize and all of that. And so it was a really restorative conversation. But also, it also feels like that entire chapter almost feels like 50 years ago because of how far our family has moved. Yeah. And you'll find that, in my experience, as soon as you just love and accept our kids for who they are, or in how they're trying to figure life out, it really does break like an intergenerational curse almost, or like it breaks it, and it really sets up the future generations and the future for your family in a completely different position, where it is away from that deficit, away from that kind of in the house thinking, and now you're in the fale, sitting on the fala with no doors, and you're just having this open conversation. And so I'm really grateful and thankful that our families moved from that place, far from it. And that I'm mindful of many families who may still be in a place like that, or maybe in similar places.
I feel like you're so graceful too, because you could hold baggage against that. When you mention like exorcism stuff, these are like, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
This is like, it could be unforgivable, know, like you're damaging me.
Yeah. It's so, And this is kind of, I think this is why, I think the way in which I view things is really in a place of that. It's kind of almost, one of my friends, she shares, and I so vibe with her on this. She says she's neither left wing nor right wing. She's bird's eye view. And that's really where I position myself too. And when I was going through this with my family, yes, I was hurt. Yes, I felt betrayed. Yes, I felt unloved, all of these things. But at the back of my mind, I knew that this wasn't their fault. Like in my back of my mind, I knew that this is something that runs deeper than I will ever. And that's what I'm trying to research and discover is how deep does it run? Because we're talking about a complete shift in lifestyle, a complete relocation, a complete shift in paradigm, a complete use of religion to indoctrinate and to disconnect people from their ngafa. Like, this is that conversation. And I think I always viewed it in that way, which then gave, for me, that grace or that understanding. And it's almost like that moment where, like, they do not know, but I know, and my auntie knows, and few of us know, and that's enough for me, And so, and I'm glad that we all know now. And my hope and my prayer and love letter for Pasifika families especially is that we all come to a knowing where we return to ourselves. And when I say ourselves, I'm saying the bigger picture, like the bigger picture of self, where we really just, where it is just about us being for our people and for all peoples in that conversation, but also bringing it all back to love, which has been romanticized and Disneyfied over the many years, a millennia, whatnot. But it really do be that beautiful force that can really bring all of us together.
I feel like I hope I did not take from your cup today.
Oh, no.
No, because like it's a bit, we should have as longer time talking about things that you find fun. And why does it have to be that you're sitting here trying to share that trauma again? I hope it's worth it, that there are these breadcrumbs, like you're saying, and I don't see a lot of these talanoa happening, especially in podcasts, and we will edit these up for TikTok and whatnot, even though I'm 30 years too old for that stuff. But I hope you sharing your pain is not taking too much.
I've really arrived at a place where I see everything in my life as an experience that I'm meant to experience, and an experience that I was purposed to be on this earth for. But also in there, I share it from a place of not necessarily healed, because I'm not even too sure whether, because the trauma and the melancholy and all of that runs so much deeper than me. It's collective. Each and every day, whether you're Indigenous or caste within the diaspora, like, we wake up in beds of intergenerational trauma. We choose to be here and we choose to be happy. Like, that's radical for me. And so, like, when I share this, like, I really do share it openly. And I share it in love for my family, like, in love for my people, in love for myself, in love for the story. Like, and there's been a lot of stuff that's happened, which is still only barely scratching the surface. But in that, I'm just overall grateful, and also I hope that someone or whoever or a community or whatever or whoever is able to connect to maybe my ideas or what I have to say or share. And may find comfort in that. Not to be like, hey, like, I got through it. Like, no, not at all. Because I'm going through it, as we all are. But I really hope that I really see myself as a magician, or as like someone who kind of goes navigates various spaces, I feel like I'm on a mission to just help people remember. And that's all it is. Like, it's just about us, kind of washing away the amnesia, remembering who we are, remembering what matters, remembering how to love, remembering that love isn't hard, and that we know it. We know it very well, and it's very easy. The answer to undoing all of this is very easy. I think my advice for like Pasifika queer pupils and communities who may be navigating this space, I think first of all, that you are precious and that you have a beautiful and purposed place in this world, and that I'm so relieved and so excited that you have arrived at this place and want to acknowledge you in this place. I think, and then the second thing is that your people, the second thing is obviously that there are services, there are communities, and there are places of refuge for you if your family may not be a safe place for you. So these services include, but not limited to, we've got Pasifika, Aotearoa Trust, who are really awesome. And they are a non-for-profit who serve Pasifika young Pasifika queer peoples or MVP FAF plus peoples within the Auckland region. There's also Moana Va, who are down on the South Island, who also have these services for people. In saying that, I'm also mindful, because I was the same. When you're kind of a little scared, you're kind of like, no, but I'm gonna out myself. If I go to that service, I'm saying to everyone, hey, look at I identify as that. And so I'm mindful of that too. And so in that, really reconnect to the things, to the people that affirm you, connect to the people that affirm you. And also, this is also quite hard to answer. I think also because the experience of a queer Pasifika person, like, I'm one experience, and I cannot even imagine another experience, or like all the things they're having to navigate. And even when me and my friends were exchanging notes and talking about our lives, so it's like, it's so different. Everyone are at different stages, and there's families that support us, there's families that are against us. Like, all of us are in all these different places. But I think that if you stay connected to your family, and by family that is chosen or otherwise, so that could be your friends, that could be your biological family, it could be whoever is in your corner supporting you, keep those connections strong. And then, and especially if you are Pasifika, look into our beautiful history. You will find, lean on our language. Your Siva knows you. You will find the beauty of, and you will find the beauty of our people within our histories. And that's kind of the work that I do, is bringing that back into the fold. There is a proverb that goes along the lines of, if the child does not feel welcomed by the village, they will burn it down to feel its warmth. And we never want our kids to be in that position. And I've felt that when I've literally wanted to burn my village to feel warm, to feel welcome, to feel that, but to know that we do not need to burn our villages down. That our villages and the way that they're architecturally structured welcomes us. And our deities welcome us. And our entire rubric welcomes us. But it's just about reconnecting through that space between stars, between the Whawhetu, between that kind of sacred, queer Pasifika space. So, I hope that is helpful. But I just think that if you're queer and Pasifika navigating this realm and this space, you're amazing. Really amazing. Yeah.
A magician.
You're a magician.
Joshua, I want to thank you for coming on our podcast and being open and sharing and helping us get more, I don't know what the right word is, just I want to call it positivity, but it's more than that, helping us get these meaningful talanoa to people who are searching, that we can finally use the internet for something good, that might stumble across it. And we've had a few of the podcasts hook into the algorithm. I'm like, thank you algorithm, because normally you're trying to radicalize people, but in this case, radicalize them with these ideas, the good ones, the ones that send you on your journey, and you've someone who's been on a journey, is on a journey, and have that beautiful skill set of storytelling to make it, to implant it properly. And so hope to keep in touch, and thank you.
No, thank you so much. And big Mickey and big afi to the work that you're doing as well. This is awesome. So thank you for having me.
If you think you or someone you know may be at immediate risk, call 111 or connect to the following services to get help. Text the Need to Talk helpline on 1737. Call the Depression helpline on 0800 111 757 or text 4202. If you would like more information on suicide prevention training and education, visit Leva on www.leva.co.nz. More support numbers are available in the show's description.